Hey everyone, Wyduck welcoming you, this time to a set of replays from the WCS Season 2 America portion. And this time in the quarterfinals, we've spawned on Akilon Waste, and in the top left, spawning as the Blue Protoss, we've got Invictus Gaming's Macsed. Macsed is a very good player from China. I'll go into further detail after we introduce his opponent, who's spawning in the bottom right as the Red Terran. We have Team Liquid's Taeja. And in this matchup, Taeja is going to be the favorite, as he's won a lot of tournaments and he's done very well recently in 2013. Macsed, like I mentioned before, he is from China, and Chinese players are generally lesser known simply because they're playing in China, and it's very difficult for Chinese players to attend a lot of international tournaments. So the two players that generally come from China that immediately come to mind for most people are Macsed and Jim. They're both very good players. And I guess one of the issues is that when they qualify so far into Premier League, that they're sometimes not able to actually leave their country and go to wherever they need to go. So, for example, Jim was denied a visa recently, and he had to get replaced by Alive. And that is an issue when you are playing for China, and you're coming from China. And hopefully in the future, that is something that they can clean up, because I really think that Chinese players add a new dynamic to the pro scene in whatever game it might be, Starcraft 2 included. And it's very unfortunate for Chinese players when they're doing so well on the ladder and they're able to qualify into the Premier League, they're able to get deep into tournaments, but then they're not able to physically go simply because countries do not accept StarCraft 2 pro gaming as a job. So that is unfortunate, but hopefully that does get cleared up in the future so players like Macsed and Jim can entertain us on a more international basis. And what we have here again, back to the game, is Taeja's actually going for 14cc on the low ground. So Taeja is really being greedy again. This is not an uncommon build for Taeja. He likes to do this. And Akilon Waste is generally one of those maps where you have to be careful when you are playing extra greedy, because this is a two-player spawn map. If your player scouts you very early or has already committed to some sort of timing attack, you can be at a huge disadvantage simply by going for the command center first, especially on the low ground. But in this game, it looks like Taeja is going to be okay, at least for now. He's got two barracks coming up. One is completed, actually. And so the Marines are going to start pumping out of these barracks to prepare for any early game contact. The Mothership Core has been warped out and is just going to be patrolling the ramp area close to Macsed's natural, so Macsed is not going to be aggressive. And in fact, Macsed hasn't scouted at all, so he doesn't even know the timing of the command center for Taeja. So Taeja does have that part as an advantage to him. And finally, Taeja is going to be getting some refineries down. He's still producing a lot of barracks, and you have to remember, these Marines are very weak. I mean, most of the Marines that we like to think about and glamorize in a lot of ways, they have combat shields and they have stim. But 5 minutes into the game, especially since Taeja did not go for early refinery, instead went for an early command center, the Marines are really weak and slow. And so they're very squishy, but Macsed is not going to be able to take advantage of this. He's only got one stalker back at home with the Mothership Core. He's got a Stargate in the back of his base. And it'll be interesting to see if he's going to be going Oracles or maybe Phoenixes. If he does go the Phoenix route, he has to be careful because Phoenixes are very micro-intensive, as there aren't that many air units early in the game. If you want to do damage, the Phoenixes have to be micro to the Harvester lines, and then you have to pick up SCVs and all those sorts of things. So that is something to take a note of. And actually, he is going to be getting one Phoenix. And he's also getting robotics facility, so he's kind of going both tech routes. So he's going to have a lot of options. But generally, players, when they commit to one sort of tech route line, they can excel in that one line. If players go 2 or 3 different tech routes, then the resources are obviously spent, and that will delay that tech advantage in a lot of ways. Second Phoenix is training currently, but now Stimpak has already been started to research, and Taeja already has huge packs of Marines at both bases. He's got 6 protecting his main, and that is the magic number. Well, 5 or 6 is the magic number to protect against oracles, but 7.5 minutes into the game, if he hasn't seen an oracle yet, that means there is no proxy Stargate. But we do have 2 Phoenixes heading across the field now, and they're going to make contact with Taeja's natural very soon, but we've got 7 Marines here hunkered down and 4 more in the bunker. I don't think these 2 Phoenixes are going to be able to do too much. And Macsed is going to immediately retreat. We've got the robotics bay halfway finished for Macsed, and he's not producing any more air units. I think Macsed has identified building these Phoenixes is not going to work, especially with so many Marines hanging around. And Taeja doesn't even need missile turrets up. He's just got so many Marines hanging about. But for Macsed, he has 3 Phoenixes. This has been quite a bit of an investment. He's able to pick off a couple SCVs here, so at least that'll get him started. But he needs to do a lot more damage if he wants to even out the resources in regards to investing into the Stargate and these 3 Phoenixes, and currently he hasn't been able to do that. So that's not going to show up in the resources loss tab. In fact, Macsed is leading, but it is a loss in my opinion, because if you can't do the damage now, the Terran player is just going to exponentially get much richer each moment those SCVs are alive. Taeja is going to be moving across the map, and this looks like Macsed's time with his Phoenix is to do some harassment, but Macsed is going to be pulling across again. He's not sure what he wants to do with those Phoenixes, going back and forth constantly, and now he is in the main base, but there is a missile turret here, able to pick off an SCV, able to kill off another one. And this is really annoying as a Terran player, constructing barracks, but your SCVs go down, but it doesn't seem to matter, as Taeja is just going to romp into the main area of Macsed's base. The Nexus cannon does go down, and 3 shots do finish off a Marine. So Taeja is trying to recollect himself. He has no medevacs in this composition, and still no combat shields, so it looks like he will be withdrawing at least temporarily. There are 2 medevacs here, but Macsed's observer is able to pick up on this immediately, just outside his natural. At the same time, Macsed is going to clean up the rocks, going to his 3rd. Thermal Lance is halfway completed, and he really needs it to get finished, because that's a lot of bio. If he doesn't have Thermal Lance, that means the Marines and Marauders are very, very close, and they will attack the Colossi directly. I love how that Marine got picked up and yelled after he was dead. But anyways, other than that, everything is going fine in Taeja's end of town. He's getting his 3rd command center upgraded to an orbital, and he's doing the same thing. He's going to be blowing up the rocks on his side, and going to be landing that for his 3rd base. Macsed has already planted his Nexus down, so both players are stabilized. And in fact, Macsed is actually ahead in supplies currently, which is a little bit surprising, because he hasn't done that much damage with his Phoenixes. He's done a little bit. He's killed 7 workers, but remember, the cost of 5 Phoenixes is a lot more than 7 workers. That Stargate is no longer inactive and is continuously pumping out more Phoenixes. And Phoenixes, even though they're not really cost effective in front-on engagements, they can do a lot of poking and prodding, and they can delay units too. And remember, if they pick up a Marine, the Marine will be finished immediately, because they do extra damage to light units. Or maybe they can focus down on the medevacs as well. So the Phoenixes are not entirely useless, but they're just not entirely that useful either, in my opinion. And now Macsed has 3 Colossi, and he's getting another one in, and Taeja is going to have to retreat here, it looks like. He's retreating to his side of the map. So both players are stabilizing on 3 bases. It looked like initially Taeja was going to be very aggressive, as he was just hanging out in front of the ramp to Macsed's natural, but now he's just hanging back. He's getting 2-2 upgrades, and he's slightly ahead of Macsed in that regard. So maybe he will choose to attack after his 2-2 upgrades come into effect. He'll have a small, maybe half a minute window where he'll have better upgrades. But both players right now, not much happening on either side of the map, but we've got a lot of Vikings for Taeja. We've got 12 Vikings, And 12 Vikings versus 4 Colossi is a pretty good number. Generally, you want about 3 Colossi per 3 Viking per Colossi. And it looks like Taeja does have that number. We've got 4 Colossi now, and more Vikings are coming out. And remember, the Phoenixes can also directly fight the Vikings, and the Vikings can directly fight the Phoenixes. The Phoenixes are much faster, but in a head-on confrontation, Vikings have superior range. So unless these Phoenixes want to do some hit and run, and it's going to be difficult to do some hit and run tactics on this group of Marines and Vikings, I think the Vikings are going to definitely have the advantage here against the Phoenixes. The Vikings are going to fly in by themselves and focus down on one of the Colossi in the red, able to kite and destroy that Colossi immediately, and now kiting against the Phoenixes as well, picking off 2 more Phoenixes. So great control by Taeja, and now, in fact, after being technically behind for the entire game in resources lost, he is going to pull slightly ahead of his Protoss opponent. The Viking is looking for more Colossi or Phoenix blood. Mind you, I don't think Phoenix or Colossi, leak blood, but they will be looking for blood anyways, and the Vikings are going to find it, able to pick off 1 Colossi with just 1 volley, and now Taeja's going to rush in here. Not stimming as of yet. He's still on the ramp. The Vikings are kiting back and forth. Remember, there are Nexus cannons on both Nexi, but they have both just ran out. So now it looks like it might be Taeja's time to shine. Able to go in there with the Vikings alone again, picking off a few Phoenixes. And the Phoenix numbers have just dwindled. There's only 3 left. And the Vikings are charging headlong into this. Have to be careful. But they're going to one-shot all the Colossi. There's no more Colossus. Just 3 Phoenixes. And all the Vikings are going to be destroyed, it looks like. But there aren't that many Stalkers left. And Taeja's Bio Ball is just going to stim in here, finish off all the sentries. Only 5 Stalkers left. And they're getting focus fire down. And Macsed is going to have to tap out. So Taeja, with excellent tactics, just constantly using that range advantage with his Vikings to put Macsed in very uncomfortable engagements and positions, and he's going to take game 1. So we're going to have to hit the game 2 and find out if Macsed can bounce back, if he can figure out a way to solve that Viking air range superiority. Otherwise, it might be a very quick series.